we're going to have a look at how you can develop your grooves on from the eighth note grooves that we looked at in the first of these videos. So last time, just a little reminder of what we were up to. I've loaded the same project that we created before. So here we've got in the top track we've got some hi-hats, in the track down from that we've got snares, and in the track below that we've got kick drums. And I've used this indie kit live, so let's have a listen to that groove. Basic 4/4 rock groove, and we adjusted the tempo using the fader down here so that it was 100 beats a minute, just a bit slower than the default 120 in GarageBand. Great. Okay, so today we're going to look at using 16th notes to make these grooves a bit more interesting. We're going to look at displacing the snares, adding some funky snares and kick drum beats. We're also going to have a look at doubling hi-hats and how we can shape velocities and do some more interesting editing things. So the first thing that I'm going to do to make it easier for us to have a look at all this content in one go is I'm going to join these three regions that we created initially separately together. To do that, I'm just going to left click and drag around the three of them, and then I'm going to use Command and J, which is going to join them together. The other way to do this is you select the regions you want to join, go to the edit menu and choose join down here. Command and J is the shortcut for that. Now what I want to do is open it up in the track editor, so I can either double click on the region here or use Command and E to open that up. So here's our content here. So you can see we've got all the hi-hats on F#1 here, we've got the snares on E there, and we've got all the kick drums on C1. You might have noticed quite a handy little tip there. If you click on any of the notes on the left hand side on the keyboard here, it actually selects all of the notes of that value in the region that you're displaying at that time. That can be really handy when you just want to, select kick drums, snares or hi-hats, and we'll be doing that a bit later on. Okay, the next thing we need to do is move over here and reset the grid value. We currently had it set on eighth notes. The default is usually the 16th note, but it does vary. It's really useful to be careful about which one you're using here, because it will make your note entry much easier in your editing process. So we're going to change that to 16th notes, and you can see now that we've got twice as many lines in our grid. So here we've got a whole bar selected. We're still using this cycle mode, which is on here, hence the yellow bar up at the top there. And those 4 beats of that 4/4 drum groove, you can see are split up into 16th notes or semiquavers. Okay, so that doesn't have any bearing, that won't actually change the way the groove actually sounds when we're listening to it at this stage. So to begin with, we're going to have a look at adding some syncopated snares and kicks to this groove, and we're going to do that actually by manually entering the notes in the editor window here, rather than as we did previously where we were using this thing called real-time note entry, where you're actually pressing the notes on the keyboard and playing in time with a metronome click. Once we've got the actual content in, it's often a lot easier to actually start copying, pasting, editing and entering notes directly within the editor window here, and that also allows you to be able to create the kind of grooves that you couldn't actually physically play on the keyboard as well. So it has a lot of advantages. So we need to discover a few little tips and tricks on how you can do that. So to start off with, I want to have a look at adding and changing the snare drum groove we've got here. One simple thing that a lot of drummers do is to just displace the groove a bit by moving a snare around, sometimes just a semi-quaver away from where you would expect it. So I'm going to start by just dragging this snare drum over to the left here. Okay, now we've done that, let's have a listen to how that affects the beat. Okay, I quite like that. That's a little bit more funky, a little bit more unusual, perhaps opens up some possibilities for doing more interesting rhythmic things. One thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to change the length of this note. When you're working with percussion parts, drum kit parts, the actual duration or length of the note doesn't have any impact on how long a note sounds for. The only thing it really affects is open hi-hats. Other than that, it doesn't really have any impact. So to create a tidier screen, I usually tend to set these to 16th notes. So have a listen, that won't make any difference to the groove.